Hi, I'm Adam Summer. You're listening to the Yerushalmi Talk podcast with the support of the Yeshivat Devar Yerushalayim in Har Nof, Jerusalem. This is Demai, chapter 4, Halacha 4 in the Art Scroll, 3882. Very short Mishnah, very short Gemara. We're going to be dealing today with what happens when you have an agent. You're going to appoint an agent, and your agent's an Amma Aretz, and then you're asking your agent to go purchase produce from a chaver. And the Mishnah says, if someone says to someone who is not trusted regarding tithes, purchase produce from me from someone who is trustworthy, or from someone who tithes, the agent is not trusted. And basically, we're going to suspect that he bought the produce from an Amma Aretz whose produce is Demai. In other words, perhaps because the Amma Aretz themselves is being appointed as the agent, and anyway they're not trustworthy regarding tithes, he can't be trusted to have followed the chaver's instructions to buy from a reliable person. And the Amma Aretz is also not going to be afraid that the chaver would investigate the matter and expose this guy to be a liar. And the integrity of the Amma Aretz can stay intact even if there's cheating going on. In contrast, if, says the Mishnah, he says to the agent, purchase produce from so-and-so, the agent is trusted to have followed his instructions, and the produce need not be tithed. Now, when you're asking the Amma Aretz agent to go purchase from so-and-so, he's instructing him to buy from a specific person who's a chaver. And the anonymous Mishnah here is going to be saying that the agent is trusted to have followed the instructions, and you don't need to tie this out as Demai. The Mara Fulda is going to be saying about this that the agent is trusted to have bought the produce from the trustworthy individual, because if he purchased the produce from someone else, he would be unable to explain his claim to have followed instructions. And presumably then he'd be telling the truth, because he would not risk his reputation by lying about something that can be verified. In other words, the guy knows who he's purchasing from. And it's like, okay, go purchase from XYZ person. This guy I know is a chaver, go purchase from him. Well, it's a problem if the Amma Aretz goes and purchases from someone else, because clearly this guy might have a relationship with the person who's selling the produce. And he can always ask. And the guy who's the agent would be found out to be a liar. So in this case, says the Mishnah, the agent is trusted. The Mishnah is going to continue. It's going to say, however, if the agent went to buy the produce from the specific individual, and then he returned and said to the one who sent him, I did not find him, so I purchased the produce for you from another seller who is trustworthy, he is not trusted. In other words, the agent is not trusted, and this produce is going to be Demai that requires tithing. So the issue here is that the agent couldn't specify from which person he bought the produce for. And basically, one could have thought that, because the chaver is not designating, is not getting back the name of a specific person, there can't be any investigation on it. And if it's without naming a trustworthy individual from who he purchased the produce, again, it falls back into a case where, who knows where he got this from? Who knows where he got this from? And so this would be a case where the Amma Aretz's testimony would not be believed. Now, the Mishnah is going to be giving a case by Rabbi Yossi in the Gemara, and the cases that are going to be coming up by Rabbi Yossi are actually going to be more stringent than what the halacha is. It's not going to be the halacha l'maisa. The halacha l'maisa is going to be like what the Mishnah said. So the Mishnah is teaching that if the haver says to the agent, purchase produce from so-and-so, the agent is going to be trusted to have followed the instructions, and the produce does not need to be tithed. Now we're going to get into an opposing opinion, and here's how it goes. It was taught in a Baraisa. Rabbi Yossi says, even if he said to the Am Ha'aretz, purchase produce from so-and-so, he is not trusted. And why is he not trusted? Because the Gemara says, as Baraisa says, unless he says to him, purchase produce from so-and-so on credit, and I will give you the money later. So Rabbi Yossi, and again, this is not the halacha, Rabbi Yossi is holding that the Am Ha'aretz is going to be suspected to be lying, even when claiming to have purchased the produce from the designated seller. And the Am Ha'aretz can reason that, yeah, if I'm caught, I will not be able to explain away my lie, but he's probably not going to check up on me. Now, the case that Rabbi Yossi is giving is going to be that it has to be done on credit, and it has to be from XYZ person on credit, and the money has to be owed later. So for sure, the haver who's hiring this agent to go get the purchase for him, well, the guy who's selling the grain is going to ask to get the bill paid, and he's going to know. And so the Am Ha'aretz is not going to risk being found out, and he's not going to risk being exposed as a liar. So the Gemara is going to explain Rabbi Yossi's reasoning. And what is Rabbi Yossi's reason, says this Gemara? In other words, why is the agent suspect of implicating himself by purchasing the produce from someone other than the designated seller? And the reason is that I say perhaps he met a relative of his who had produce for sale, and he bought from him instead of buying from the designated seller. So in other words, Rabbi Yossi's holding, says Amara Fulda, that there's a worry that the Am Ha'aretz will risk being exposed as a liar in order to give his relative business. And the Rabbi Yossi saying that the Am Ha'aretz agent is not believed because he might have found another seller also who could be closer than the designated one. In other words, when it's saying that it's a relative, the Pnei Moshe is pointing out that it might not be a blood relative, it might just be that he's closer. In other words, physically closer, and it's an easier task to do. So Rabbi Yossi is adding this extra requirement, this extra stringency, to make sure that really what the haver is getting back really is going to be something that is going to have tithes separated out from it. So the Gemara is going to cite a discussion where Rabbi Yossi's position is going to be understood a little bit differently. And the Gemara says that we learned there in the Mishnah, if a woman appointed an agent and said to him, accept my get for me in such and such a place, she may continue to eat truma until the get reaches that place. But Rabbi Lazar prohibits her from eating truma immediately. This, by the way, is going to be the Tana. In other words, both Tanaim look like they're holding a similar opinion. Now, interesting that you would have an opinion by Rabbi Yossi that looks like it's following an opinion by Rabbi Lazar. Now, what's going on over here? We have where a woman goes and instructs her agent to go meet her husband or the husband's agent in a specific place to get her get and to bring it back to her. And in this case, the woman, the husband is a Goan, and so she's allowed to eat truma as long as she's married to him. But she's going to be a daughter of a non-Goan, and so she has to stop eating truma the moment the get reaches her agent, and then the divorce takes effect. So the Mara Fulda explains that since she stipulated that the agent must accept the get for her at the designated location, she may eat the truma for as long as it took to take the agent to arrive over there to that location. And the Mishnah is stating that until the get reaches that place. In other words, it actually means that there's enough time for the agent to arrive there and get the get. That's really what it's saying. And what it's saying is, as soon as the agent leaves the wife's present, she may no longer eat truma, as the Gemara is going to proceed to explain. And Rabbi Lazar is holding that since the agent might encounter the husband and receive the get immediately after leaving the wife's presence, she must stop eating truma as soon as she departs. And while she's under the impression that her husband is in the distant city to which she directed the agent, we're worried that the agent might find the husband actually immediately outside the door and accept the get right away, in which case she's divorced and she's not allowed to eat truma immediately. And Rabbi Lazar, like over there in the case of the Mishnah, is saying that the woman's instructions were not meant to limit the agent of the get to a specific place, just to direct the agent to the husband. That's really what Rabbi Lazar is saying. Rabbi Lazar is saying, no, it doesn't really mean you're going to go to XYZ location. It really just means you're going to go to the husband. And Rabbi Lazar's point is, well, what happens if you met the husband earlier? And so really what Rabbi Lazar's point is as soon as the agent leaves, he could have found the husband. Maybe the husband was outside the wife's door, gave the get immediately. She would not be allowed to eat truma. And so if the agent received the get in a different location, this get is still going to be valid, by the way. And as soon as she gets the get, she's no longer allowed to eat truma. The Tana Kama, on the other hand, are going to follow the other case that a woman is going to be particular and her get is to be received in the location that she specified. The halacha is going to be by the Tana Kama, not Rabbi Eliezer. But the Gemara is going to explain Rabbi Eliezer's opinion about this. It says, what is Rabbi Lazar's reason? And it is that I say that perhaps the agent found the husband immediately behind the door and received the get from him right away. And although the woman instructed the agent to receive the get from the husband in a specific location, Rabbi Lazar holds that she does not mind if she gets the get in a different location. So the Gemara is going to comment and try to put this together with how Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yosei have some similarities here. And the Gemara is going to comment that the ruling of Rabbi Lazar accords with that of Rabbi Yosei. And the ruling of Rabbi Yosei accords with Rabbi Lazar. In other words, just as Rabbi Lazar rules that when a woman specifies that her get be received in a certain location, she does not object if it is received in another location. And so too, Rabbi Yossi is holding that although the Haver named a specific individual from whom to purchase the produce, he does not object if the agent purchases the produce from another seller. And the agent therefore feels free to deviate from the Haver's instructions. Now, I want to look at the Marafulda. The Marafulda is saying that the Gemara understands that Rabbi Yossi's reason for suspecting the Amma Aretz is not because the agent is suspect to ignore the sender's instructions in order to give his relative business. Rather, Rabbi Yossi's reason is that the Amma Aretz understands that the sender's instructions is to buy from so-and-so was not meant to preclude him from buying from someone else, but just to direct him where he could buy some produce. And this is going to correlate with Rabbi Lazar's ruling that the woman's instruction to her husband or to the agent to accept the get from her husband in a specific place is meant just to direct him to the husband. It's not to preclude him from accepting the get from someone else. Now, the Gemara is going to reject this because this does seem a bit like a stretch. The ruling, says the Gemara, of Rabbi Yosei goes further than that of Rabbi Lazar. For does Rabbi Lazar not concede that if the woman said to the agent, accept the get for me only in such and such a place, that she may continue to eat truma until the get reaches that place? And in this case, Rabbi Lazar agrees that since she is particular that her get be received in the specified location, there's no worry of her being divorced before the agent reaches that location and accepts the get. And the idea, says the Marafulda about this on Rabbi Lazar's ruling, is that he presumes that although the woman specified where the agent should get the get, she really does not care where he accepts it, and was just really trying to direct the agent to go meet the husband. And if she's making it obvious that she wants him to accept the get only in that specific location, Rabbi Lazar would agree that the agent may not accept the get anywhere else, and she may thus continue eating truma until the get is received by the agent in that specified location. So the question is, in the case where Rabbi Lazar is agreeing that since she's particular that her get be received in a specified location, there's no concern that she's divorced before the husband gives the agent the get. But here, Rabbi Yosei, says the Gemara, maintains that even if he said to him, purchase produce from so-and-so, he's not trusted. And the Gemara says, unless he says to him, purchase produce from so-and-so on credit, and I will give him the money later. In other words, Rabbi Yossi is holding that the agent could be suspect of deviating from the instructions. And really it's going to be looked at like Rabbi Lazar's suggestion that he just says, he's directing him to that place, the agent to that place, and he really just means go get the get from the husband. Just go get it. And maybe the husband will be over there. And so too, in Rabbi Yossi's case, he's saying, just go get me this grain, and I'm saying the specified of so-and-so, because I'm saying, it's just to go help me out, but really there's a guy here that's closer that sells, and I'm just going to get from that guy. Well, Rabbi Yossi says, no, you really have to do it on credit, because that's the only way to specify that it really is going to be gotten from this guy. In other words, there's no other way to do it that the agent might change it and say, well, I can really just get from anyone, and he's just trying to help me out. And Rabbi Yosei, according to the Vilna Goan, is saying that the agent is not believed unless he says to him, purchase the produce on credit, and I will pay him later. And this is implying that even if the Haver made it perfectly clear that he does not want the agent to buy the produce from anyone else, he would not be trusted unless he purchases the produce on credit. And the Gemara, again, is going to be implying that Rabbi Yossi is going to be suspecting the agent to deviate from his instructions. So the Gemara finishes up and it says, what then is Rabbi Yossi's reason? And the Gemara says, it is that I say perhaps the agent made a relative who had the same produce for sale, and he brought from him against the will of the sender. In other words, Rabbi Yossi's saying, and in fact going further than that of Rabbi Lazar. And it doesn't mean that Rabbi Yossi would rule differently in the case of Rabbi Lazar. They might agree about the case of the get. And everyone would agree that when the woman empowers the agent to receive the get only in a certain location, the get is invalid if it's received in any other location. And the difference between the two Tanaim, though, comes up in this case, that of the agent, where they're sent to purchase produce from a reliable person. Now, in this case, Rabbi Lazar's logic would be that when one names a specific location, he does not mean to preclude other locations or other sellers. And that would apply only if the Haver does not state explicitly that the produce must be purchased from the specified individual. But Rabbi Yossi is going further. Rabbi Yossi, says the Rosh, maintains that even if the Haver made clear that the agent must purchase the produce from the specified individual, there's a clear worry that he may choose to buy the produce from a relative instead. And the only way to cure that is to buy it on credit, where he's going to pay later. That is not the halacha. Rabbi Yossi is not the halacha. Why? Because this is Demai, and Demai is going to be lenient on it. There's going to be some leniencies on it. So we're going to go by what the anonymous Mishnah says, which is going to be saying that if he says to the agent, purchase produce from so-and-so, the agent is trusted to have followed his instructions, and the produce need not be tithed. And in other words, the Mara Fulda is saying about this that the agent is trusted to have purchased the produce from the trustworthy individual, because if he purchased the produce from someone else, he would be unable to explain his claim to have followed instructions. And in other words, he doesn't want to risk his reputation and be found out as a liar about something that can be verified. And certainly, if you're saying, go purchase from so-and-so, well, maybe the person's going to go there a week later and say, oh, did you get my last order? And the guy's going to say, no, I didn't get your last order. What last order? And then the agent's going to be found out to be a liar. So the agent is also not going to want to take the risk to be found out to be a liar. And that is going to be enough, says the Tana Kama. Rabbi Yossi's point goes further, and that's really too far for Demai. That might be the case for if we had issues about this being Doraita tithes. But in a case where it's Demai, it's going to be a leniency on the Demai anyway, and then we're also going to rule a little bit more leniently in the case of the testimony like this, where you're saying go to this specific one. So you're going to have a leniency on a leniency. And in that case, it's going to be considered trustworthy. Have a great day.